December 26, 1980. 3 a.m. RAF Woodbridge, Suffolk, England. Airman First Class John Burroughs was conducting routine security patrols on the perimeter of the base when he noticed something strange. Lights. Moving through Rendlesham Forest just beyond the East Gate, descending, like an aircraft in distress. He radioed the control tower. "We have lights in the forest, possible downed aircraft." Permission was granted to investigate. Burroughs and Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston grabbed flashlights, exited the base through the East Gate, and entered the dense pine forest.
You copy? Over.
As they moved deeper into the trees, something impossible began to happen. Their radios started malfunctioning, static, distortion. They could hear the control tower's transmissions, but the tower couldn't hear them. The two-way communication had become one-way. They were cut off. Then the lights appeared, not from a crashed aircraft, not from anything they recognized. A metallic triangular craft, hovering, glowing with strange lights,
This is base
blue,
camp.
red, yellow,
You copy?
no
Over.
wings, no rotors, no visible propulsion, just hovering among the trees. Peniston approached it, touched it, felt its warm surface, saw symbols etched into the hull, hieroglyphic-like markings that made no sense, and then, as suddenly as it appeared, the craft lifted off, moved through the trees with impossible agility, rose into the sky, and vanished. Back at the base, something even stranger was happening. The entire facility had gone into lockdown. Communications were disrupted. Radar systems showed anomalies. And in the nuclear weapons storage area, the most sensitive, heavily guarded location on the base, alarms were triggered. This is the story of the Rendlesham Forest incident, Britain's Roswell. The night an entire military base went silent as something unknown descended from the sky, and the decades-long cover-up that followed. To understand what happened at Rendlesham, you need to understand where it happened. RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters were twin military bases in Suffolk, England, leased to the United States Air Force. They weren't ordinary bases, they were strategic NATO installations, part of the front-line defense against Soviet aggression during some of the tensest years of the Cold War. And here's what wasn't publicly acknowledged at the time. RAF Bentwaters housed nuclear weapons. Colonel Charles Halt, the deputy base commander during the incident, would later confirm it was the forward-most nuclear storage area in Europe. Think about that. This wasn't a training facility or a logistics hub. This was a nuclear weapons storage site, the kind of place where security is absolute, where every movement is monitored, where the slightest anomaly triggers immediate response. In late December 1980, RAF Bentwaters and Woodbridge were home to the 81st Tactical Fighter Wing, equipped with A-10 Thunderbolt ground attack aircraft designed for anti-tank missions in the event of Soviet invasion. The personnel stationed there weren't civilians. They weren't untrained observers prone to misidentification. They were military professionals with top-secret security clearances. Air Force Security Police, officers, radar operators, men trained to identify aircraft, assess threats, and respond to security breaches. And on the night of December 26, 1980, something breached the perimeter. Let me walk you through what happened minute by minute. At approximately 3 a.m. on December 26th, Airman John Burroughs and Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston were on patrol near the east gate of RAF Woodbridge when they spotted unusual lights descending into Rendlesham Forest. They reported it to the Central Security Control. Initially, they thought it was a downed aircraft, a reasonable assumption given the proximity to active military airfields. They were granted permission to investigate. As they approached the forest in their patrol vehicle, their radios began malfunctioning. Static, interference. The communications became one-way. They could hear transmissions from the tower, but the tower couldn't hear them. This is a commonly reported feature in close UFO encounters. Communications disruption, electronic interference. It's documented across hundreds of cases worldwide. Burroughs and Peniston continued on foot, and that's when they saw it. According to Peniston's written statement and later interviews, they encountered a craft unlike anything in the military inventory. Triangular or conical in shape, approximately 10 feet across and 8 feet high. Metallic surface, 3 legs supporting it, covered in symbols that resembled hieroglyphics. It was definitely mechanical in nature, Peniston later wrote. This was technology. I was in awe of the technology and yes, a knowing that it was not an aircraft which could have been manufactured in 1980 or even now. Peniston approached the object. He later claimed he touched it, felt a warm, smooth surface. He took notes, drew sketches, documented the symbols he saw on the hull. Then the craft retracted its legs, rose silently into the air, maneuvered through the dense forest, weaving between trees that should have been impossible to navigate, and accelerated into the sky at tremendous speed. The 2 men watched it disappear, stood in the forest, flashlights in hand, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. When they returned to the base and reported what happened, they were debriefed, told not to discuss the incident, warned that bullets are cheap, a thinly veiled threat to remain silent. But the encounter wasn't over. 2 nights later, it happened again. On the night of December 27th to 28th, strange lights were reported again in Rendlesham Forest. This time, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, the deputy base commander, decided to investigate personally. Halt was a pragmatist, a career officer, not someone prone to wild speculation or flights of fancy. He brought a tape recorder with him to document whatever mundane explanation awaited in the forest. The audio recording he made that night is now declassified. You can listen to it yourself. And it's chilling. Halt and his team entered the forest. They found the landing site from 2 nights earlier. 3 depressions in the ground forming a triangle approximately 7 feet apart. They measured radiation levels. Found readings 3 to 4 times higher than background radiation. Then the objects appeared. Here he comes from the south, Halt says on the tape. He's coming toward us now. A red sun-like object was moving through the trees, pulsing, dripping what appeared to be molten metal. It looks like an eye winking at you, Halt says. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal. The object emitted a beam of light that appeared to strike the ground near the weapons storage area, the most sensitive location on the entire base. Then more objects appeared. Star-like lights hovering in the sky to the north and south, moving erratically, demonstrating flight characteristics that shouldn't be possible with known aircraft. The encounter lasted hours. Multiple witnesses, multiple objects, all documented on Halt's tape recorder. When it was over, Halt wrote an official memorandum to the British Ministry of Defense. It's now one of the most famous documents in UFO history. The memo stated that an unidentified object was observed at close quarters, that it illuminated the entire forest with white light, that it moved through the trees and left physical evidence, that it appeared to shine a beam down upon the weapons storage area. And the British Ministry of Defence's response? They claimed the event posed no threat to national security, therefore it was never investigated as a security matter. Think about that. An unknown object penetrated the airspace of a NATO nuclear weapons storage facility, landed multiple times, was witnessed by trained military personnel, demonstrated technology far beyond anything in the Western or Soviet arsenals, and it was dismissed as no threat. For years, the Rendlesham Forest incident was buried, classified. The witnesses were debriefed and told not to discuss it. The physical evidence, soil samples, radiation measurements, photographs, disappeared into classified channels. But in 1983, a copy of Lieutenant Colonel Halt's memo was leaked to a British UFO researcher. The story went public. Newspapers covered it. Researchers investigated. Witnesses began coming forward, and the official denials began. The British Ministry of Defense claimed the lights were misidentified natural phenomena. The brightest object to the south, they said, was Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. The Orfordness Lighthouse swept beams across the forest that could be misinterpreted as moving lights. Skeptics agreed. Ian Ridpath, a British UFO researcher and skeptic, argued the entire incident was a series of misidentifications. Lighthouse beams, stars, meteors, nothing extraordinary. But the witnesses, trained military personnel with security clearances, disputed this. "I know what a lighthouse looks like," Halt has said repeatedly in interviews. "I know what stars look like. What we saw wasn't a lighthouse or a star." In 2010, Halt signed a notarized affidavit stating, "I believe the objects that I saw at close quarter were extraterrestrial in origin, and that the security services of both the United Kingdom and the United States have attempted, both then and now, to subvert the significance of what occurred at Rendlesham Forest and RAF Bentwaters by the use of well-practiced methods of disinformation." Extraterrestrial. That's what the deputy base commander believes. A man who spent decades in the military, who held a position of immense responsibility, who had no reason to fabricate such a story. In 2015, Halt claimed to have obtained statements from radar operators at RAF Bentwaters, confirming they had tracked an unidentified object moving at extraordinary speed on the night of December 26, 1980. Radar confirmation, multiple witnesses, physical evidence, audio recordings, official memos, and still the official position remains. Nothing significant happened. It was misidentified lights, misperceptions, nothing to investigate. So what descended into Rendlesham Forest on those December nights in 1980? There are only a few possibilities. Possibility 1, misidentification. Trained military personnel, men responsible for guarding nuclear weapons, misidentified a lighthouse, stars, and meteors. For multiple nights, at close range, with radar confirmation, and they all experienced identical hallucinations while their radios malfunctioned. That's the skeptical explanation, and it requires believing that everyone involved was incompetent or delusional. Possibility 2, secret technology. The objects were experimental aircraft, British or American black programs testing technology so advanced it appeared extraterrestrial. But why test it at a nuclear weapons storage facility? Why risk a security incident? Why allow trained military personnel to approach and document it? And why, 45 years later, has no such technology been revealed? Possibility 3. Psychological operation. Some researchers claim the incident was a psyop, a test to see how personnel would react to a simulated UFO encounter. The SAS, British Special Forces, allegedly conducted a security test at the base in August 1980 and may have returned in December. But that doesn't explain the radar tracks, the radiation readings, the multiple independent witnesses, the communication disruptions. Possibility 4. Extraterrestrial. This is what Lieutenant Colonel Halt believes, what Staff Sergeant Peniston believes, what Airman Burrows believes, that something not from Earth descended into that forest, landed, was observed at close range by multiple trained witnesses, demonstrated technology decades or centuries beyond human capability, and then disappeared. And both governments, British and American, covered it up, classified the evidence, threatened the witnesses, and maintained the cover-up for over 4 decades. Today, the Rendlesham Forest incident is considered one of the best documented UFO cases in history. Multiple witnesses, physical evidence, audio recordings, official documentation, but the truth, the complete unredacted truth, that remains classified, buried in Ministry of Defense files, hidden in U.S. military archives, guarded by official denials and carefully constructed skeptical explanations. In 2015, John Burroughs successfully obtained his full medical records related to the incident, records that had been classified for decades. What they revealed about his injuries and exposure during the encounter has never been fully disclosed. Jim Peniston claims the craft telepathically transmitted binary code into his brain during the encounter. He's produced notebooks filled with ones and zeros that he says he wrote in a trance-like state for weeks after the incident. When decoded, the message allegedly references specific coordinates and mentions exploration of humanity. And Lieutenant Colonel Halt? He spent decades pushing for full disclosure, demanding the British and American governments release all classified files related to the incident. So far, they've refused. On December 26, 1980, something descended into Rendlesham Forest, something that caused radios to malfunction. That triggered alarms in a nuclear weapons storage area. That was witnessed by trained military personnel. That demonstrated technology we still don't understand. And for 45 years, both governments have maintained the same position. Nothing significant happened. Move along. Nothing to see here. But the witnesses know better. And increasingly, so does the public. The night an entire military base went silent. The night something unknown penetrated one of NATO's most sensitive facilities. The night that changed everything for the men who witnessed it. Rendlesham Forest, Britain's Roswell, and the truth that's still classified. If this story makes you question what else governments are hiding about UFO encounters, if you believe these military witnesses deserve to have their accounts taken seriously, if you think 45-year-old incidents should be declassified, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel, because there are more stories like this, more military bases that experienced encounters, more witnesses who've been silenced, more evidence that's been classified for decades. The Rendlesham Forest files remain largely sealed, but the truth is slowly emerging, one declassified document at a time. And we're going to expose every single one.